is 4, and we're live. Welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm. Set as we see it, and frankly as well. I'm Joe Spina, along with Paul Crowley, Michael Anthony Satterwhite, and Michael, we have 2 special guests.
We do. We have Blake and Lenny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about a very important subject right after we mention the fact, folks, today is Pearl Harbor Day, and also the birthday of the mayor of the city of Lynn.
Yes,
Can you imagine that?
Happy birthday, Mayor.
Yeah. Are you going to his party tonight?
Absolutely. I got to rub elbows. with everybody.
But you write a check out?
No.
Politicians are like crime. They don't pay.
They don't pay? Well, I heard it's a pretty good ticket. I mean, you got to pony up a little bit of gin and
I was kind of hoping I could just buy him a card or something. But
What happened?
$1,000, Jesus.
Is it $1,000?
I have no idea.
Yeah, of course, you're a politician.
I have no idea. I'll get back to you. I'll look at
On that?
I'll get back to you, and I'll
If
look
if you're going to have a fundraiser, don't call me for a grant.
Okay.
$25, $50 is one thing. right?
Possibly, yeah.
I gave Andrea 50. That was my best. Yes,
You gave her multiple checks, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
I did give her multiple?
Yes.
Can I have a refund? I can't believe it. I mean, can you imagine having a birthday on Pearl Harbor Day? Well, it happens to be your birthday. Pearl Harbor Day break happened in 1941. Here it is. But actually, World War II began in 1939. People don't realize that. We didn't really get into it until 42. Can we hear what happened?
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
Question, Joe. Now, you say it started in 1939,
The war.
What World War II did, yeah.
and then the attack on Pearl Harbor happened afterwards.
Yeah, 1941.
The U.S. didn't enter the war until 42.
Okay.
Actually, in
At
42.
42, that's when U.S. entered.
We were the determining factor in the outcome of the war.
Of course.
Lend-Lease aid.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, there are those who argue that Roosevelt squeezed the Japanese in order to attack us, in order to have an excuse to get into the war against the Europeans, because we had neutrality acts at that time, that they would not allow us
To
to.
enter the war.
Right. So we were supplying Europe through the Russians, ironically, which is the Soviet Union, through Murmansk. And, arguably, we squeezed the Japanese to attack. They understood that they couldn't beat the United States in a war. They didn't have any resources. They'd recently modernized. They were a feudal state, in 1853 when Commodore Perry stepped ashore. So we're going to show a lot. Next week, folks, we promise you we'll give you the whole clip on the history of what led up to Pearl Harbor, which is important. But no, we didn't get into the war until 1942, and the decisive battle took place in 42, Paulie, was Midway.
Right.
Because if the Japanese made a terrible error, hate to say that, but if they knocked out our aircraft carriers, which they didn't, the party was over.
Exactly.
Yeah. And today, by the way, Blake, since you mentioned it to me earlier before the show, you were talking about the harmony that must exist when an individual uses his head to trump emotion. And we better start using our head regarding dealing with China as we speak today. Otherwise, what happened back then in 1941 will come back to revisit us in a negative way. So speak to that, by the way. Speak to the issue that you talked to me about the harmony between intellect and emotion, particularly with drugs. You two fellows are very active in the.
Absolutely.
Right.
I recently returned from a visit from the Tenderloin section of San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley. Berkeley, I just went to campus, but for something else. And I talk to people. I talk to you no matter what your economic situation is, suit and tie or whatever.
Or state of mind.
I talk to you. And so I looked, and the more I looked around, I just never seen it before. I heard about it, and the more I looked around, and I kept saying to myself, this is everywhere in this country.
Yeah, microcosm.
Yeah, there are little leans this way and leans that way, but this is everywhere in the country, and it's much bigger than this area of Boston. It's like a district, but I saw a lot of emotion, a lot of emotion, and I looked at the places that are set up to help. They're underwater. They're underwater because they're being drowned by the people that they're trying to help.
So not enough resources.
And I walked into these places looking around like, damn, wow. And I told them my position, what I was doing, what I had been through. And they says, do you plan on staying? No. I'm just here to observe, visit, talk to some people, gather information, put it all together, and share it with people. And that was I was there for maybe 3 days. I traveled in those different towns and cities, but there for 3 days, mainly in the Tenderloin, because I want to hear people. I want to hear what happened, why it continues to happen, because there are people that live in hotels without bathrooms. And the reason that they don't have bathrooms is because the city put out these big, huge green toilets.
Wait a minute, you're talking about the Bay Area and
The
California.
Bay Area,
Yeah, okay.
and Tenderloin specifically.
Yeah, but they cleaned that up real fast.
Was that before or after
Yeah.
the chairman of China came?
That was, I don't know when the chairman of China came. I heard about that, but I didn't ask for any dates.
Well, when you were there, was San Francisco, as they described it, with feces all over the place and falling apart and drug addicted people?
Well,
laying-
that was, I could see that.
Well, they cleaned it up, didn't they,
They
Paulie?
cleaned it up specifically for the Chinamen.
Right, but they probably just like they do anywhere. Well, there's going
Put a
to be
little Band-Aid.
a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this, Lenny. And by the way, you sit on the board, don't you, Michael, with these fellows?
Winners Against Drug
Yeah.
Abuse.
And that's very important. But see, what I would suggest, California is interesting because the climate is favorable to living outdoors.
Absolutely.
The other thing, very important,
But not
because
San
a lot of the people, I was told by one of the missionaries that 60 to 70% of the people that live there aren't from there. They come from as
Transit.
far as Dallas, Sacramento,
All over
even all over to come there because of the evenness of the weather. It can stay out long and just get what they're going to get.
So I was there last year, and that was one of the questions I asked, because there was you would think that Southern California would have a large Mexican population, but San Francisco has a really, really large Mexican population. And, I asked questions like, well, when did your family first come here, like whatnot? And there were good conversations. There are good parts of the Bay Area, and there are substantially bad parts of the Bay Area. We went to go eat dinner one night when I was there, and we parked in an area that is like Methadone Mile or Mass Cash, and there were just mattresses on the street, and you can smell urine. It was not a good experience, and that's probably why no one was parked there. But we parked there, and we walked 2 streets over, and everything was beautiful. So it all depends on where you go. We rented a car, and we stayed at a hotel, and someone broke into that car.
And that was that?
That was.
Wait a minute, Michael, don't feel bad. A 17-year-old broke into an FBI guy's car and stole it. Would you believe? Recently.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No, well, we just had a break-in at a store in Lynn. A bunch of teenagers broke into.
Right across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's upsetting to see stuff like that.
But that story's starting to be common. People are desperate.
That's the problem, yes.
And that's the story that we want to share. There's a lot of individuals that like Blake met and interviewed in the Tenderloin area. It's the same story you hear in America. People with great careers, great jobs, and they get a little problem. And we got to address the underlying issue. And
What's that little problem, Lenny?
everyone wants to give you a little medicine to take care, a little Band-Aid to take care of some of the emotional stuff, which interferes with the intellect. Like Blake was just talking about.
And then you have a customer for the rest of your life. They don't care about you. They care about your money. That's the issue.
Well, let me ask this, Paulie, because...
Then when it's not affordable, guess what? You got the local pharmaceutical guy sitting in the corner.
Well, yeah, they're all over the place, Lenny. Every time I go up and down the street on the highway, I see cannabis this and cannabis that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not
I
even-
might as
I'm
well
not even
grow it in
talking-
my backyard and make a
I'm
few
talking
bucks.
about that guy.
We're talking about oxycodone and other.
Yeah. Hey, Blake, share one of the stories.
Wait a
Actually,
minute,
you got
wait a minute.
clip.
I want to get Paul involved in here because Paul is one who's lived that dream. Paul, you've been sober for a very long time.
Yeah, 32 years or so.
Yeah. You grew up one day and you said, I can't go on like this, which is what you said to me, Blake. You've been clean for 20 years? And what about you, Lenny? You a user?
Going in on 17 years now.
17, 20, 30? You
Yeah, so we
never
had a
were
conversation a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it, Blake, but we were talking about the big drug bust here in Lynn. It was up on
yeah.
Broadway, right? And
National
all the
Broadway.
drugs, I mean, the amount of drugs was like, you know, it was like a warehouse for the entire North Shore. If you,
Fentanyl.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was the worst stuff you can come across. So they get it, they take it out of the system, they take the guys that are the distributors out of the system, and the worry that we all have is that somebody just fills the void. To me, it would have been a perfect opportunity, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, for us to be going after the people who are looking for that next fix. This is the time when maybe we can get them in a weak point and get them into treatment and things like that, because there's a bunch of them out there. All of a sudden, no longer is it a question of I don't have the money to buy it, but there was no drugs to be had. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on what you can do when something
My thoughts on it, it's not that black and white. You don't go get them because there's nothing for them to get. When you want to get high, you're going to go get high. And that's the way that game goes. You can be available, make yourself available, make for sure that there are people with centers or programs or treatment places where, hey, here's what I have. Wherever I go, for that matter,
Of course.
I give my information, or I give information that I have, so that person has a lead, someone or somewhere to contact if it becomes important.
Right. But there's a seminal moment there where the community can act and try to
Absolutely.
move in, and that's
But then
my
there's
point.
the problem. You got the monopoly with the insurances. You know, and not everyone, you have to have medical insurance to get treatment. Not everyone
Wait
has
a minute.
that.
Let me hear that
and
again. Hold on, let me hear that again. I want to make sure the folks out there understand it. You're telling me in order to get treatment for an addiction, you need to have medical insurance?
Yes,
You- you-
absolutely.
This is
You have
all
to have
politics.
insurance.
Yeah, and it could be Mass Health. But what
Could be Mass Health,
I want
and that's limited.
It sounds like.
And that's limited, Michael. Mass Health
yeah.
is limited to a certain degree.
What-
And then there's inequities in getting that help and that resources for the people.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's no housing after they do go through the cycle, and then they end up right back on the street.
So, it's
So,
like you can teach a man to fish, right? And he'll eat for a day. How about equipping them with a fishing rod, then equipping them with the ability to get a license,
Lenny,
then to cooperate? That's how you fix underlying
I had
issues.
an old timer from Sicily, Augusta, Sicily, that taught me that forever and a day, and he couldn't speak English that well either.
But what I want to say
Go ahead,
is,
Michael.
what it sounds like Paul's talking about is an intervention, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, and I agree with that. And as you were saying earlier, when you were talking about, how long people have been clean at this table,
Right.
And you and I have not used, but I'm a son of an addict. You know what I
I
mean?
know,
Like
yeah.
I know what the impact is on the other end of things, and I feel as though the more times addicts can see that they can have a normal life, or the impact that it has on their kids or family members, it could be beneficial. We always hear about the addict and the struggle, when the addict is really thinking about the impact they're having on the people that they love. Because when you go to family
disagree
and probate court or to drug court or whatnot, they're always talking about, I want to stop this because I know it hurts my family. Or I was in court today, there were two parents that were getting custody of their 7-year-old daughter who the grandmother had custody of. And they saved up. They were able to get an apartment right across the hall from the grandmother, and then they started to incorporate themselves in their 7-year-old daughter's life. And now they went to court to get custody, which is a big, big deal. And that's what's keeping them clean. They literally said, I'm clean because I need to be there for my child.
More often than not, though.
You made a good point, though. There was a time when they had some intervention and some treatment to get to that point.
Exactly.
When someone's under active addiction, they have there's no interaction. I want to do. You're locked and loaded.
Yeah.
And when someone's stuck with the disease of addiction,
Without intervention.
which is a treatable disease. It's treatable.
But it's difficult.
There's no cure, but it's treatable.
Yes, but you're right about there's no cure. The one thing about, probably, you're well aware of the fact that most of the friends that I have are alcoholics, right? I mean,
recovering?
recovery.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And I was in the business for all my life.
What business?
Bar business. I was
Okay.
basically a drug dealer. I provided folks that had addictions, serious addiction. I mean, I had guys that would come in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, go to work, and give me a double 7 with Coke. That was breakfast, okay? And one of the things I noted about all of these fellows that would come in at 7 and 8 in the morning before they went to work is very few of them had a full set of hands, fingers, because they lost their digits, with the machinery that they were dealing with. And at lunchtime, guess what? They came in and what they got with no ice, a double 7 with Coke. Would you believe that, Polly? And at supper, after work, they got a
Double 7.
Yeah. And this was a typical routine, day in and day out. Somehow they survived, and there were no interventions back then. I don't know how they did it. I really don't.
So I got to tell you, it's kind of comical, but it just speaks to what you're saying. So there's a guy that I used to be a manager at a bar, and he used to order Canadian Club and soda until the burning in his stomach would get out of control, and he would change to 7 and 7. I mean, Canadian Club and milk.
Wow.
He would
Yeah.
drink them. He
Milk to help
couldn't
himself.
stop it, and that's how it can be. But I think the biggest reason why people stop, whatever their addiction is they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's usually what it boils down to. Because I have firsthand knowledge of that, and that really is a big part of it. Everybody has a different bottom or whatever. Where is it, and all that kind of stuff.
What was your bottom, Blake?
Enough.
Same thing he just
Sick
said.
and tired of being sick and
I
tired.
got tired, and I made a promise to myself that I would never do this again. And that's a bold statement to make. And in the beginning, people said that, that's a strong statement to make. I says, that's who I am.
What about you?
Sick and tired.
Same thing. So what's the message here, Michael? You get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
On to the next phase.
All right. And you guys are there to help people guide through that. So you've had the experience. I don't, Michael. I can't speak to it.
The thing is to continue to make yourself available.
That's it?
No, that's not it. But that's where it starts at.
Yeah.
Make yourself available to where those that are going through that, because they see you and they know that you've been there. It's like, well, wait a minute. Then it goes back to why when I travel, hey, I've been there. You? Yes, me. Really? Yes, really.
Yeah.
Here's my story. It's all about identity.
So in Lenny,
Yeah.
your hometown, where would people go who are sick and tired of being sick and tired?
Well, there's a number of places they can go, right, Blake? We got Recovery Exchange Center, right?
Where is it?
That's right on
35 Exchange Street, right down the street. Maybe
Maybe
2 minute
across from
program.
the
3
old
minutes.
Sovereign Bank.
I know the people that work there. It's a great organization. It's
So anybody
wonderful.
that's looking for some help, it's there for them.
It's mainly a place for
There's
resources.
Many.
Keep
many
going through with
places.
them, because these folks out there need to know. Our number here is 781-780-9460. If anybody needs to speak that has a loved one that's facing addiction, they get an opportunity to talk to people who know about it.
And one of the things that I think Blake hit the nail on the head was that these people come from all walks of
Of
life.
course.
Wealth, poverty, black, white.
Nobody's
addiction-
immune.
Yeah, addiction does not discriminate.
When I was a bartender for all those
Politicians
years,
do.
I knew exactly.
Every one of us is a politician.
But a person would walk in, and you would know what they were going to drink or what it was that they had. There is a profile,
Absolutely.
and people got to understand that it's not. It's just the way life is. People of color like cool cigarettes as opposed to menthol cigarettes. They used to be. Is that stereotypical or was it accurate? It was pretty accurate.
Newports
actually.
were
That's
predominantly
that's a
black,
very
yeah.
good statement, strong statement you make, because it goes back to logic versus emotion.
Exactly.
And I have to say that people of color, meaning black people, when I was growing up,
We're targeted.
it was always the way you wore your clothing was very cool,
Very important.
very cool, and
Yeah.
that culture got adopted by everybody else.
Yeah.
Hey, look at the cool guy. Well, I want to dress like that.
Oh, Michael, you told me about hair.
Hey,
Yeah.
Not about how important.
No.
I'm fascinated by barbershops and the community. You talk about that.
No, I'll tell you that the black community, the Hispanic community, pay a lot of money to be maintained. If
Yeah.
how often do you get your haircut? Every 2 weeks?
Well, Blake doesn't get a haircut too
No, I don't
often.
have that.
Twice a week.
Thursdays.
Oh, wow.
Thursdays,
No,
baby.
it's a part of who we are. You know what I mean? And I have 2 daughters and sisters, and they spend a lot of money to maintain their hair and make sure that it's healthy and looks good. So it's a part of the culture.
So it's not, see, this is what, Blake, you were talking about. That's what I liked about what you said. It's okay to talk about these things because we have profiles and tendencies. And
Image is powerful and image is real.
Exactly.
It can be distorted.
No, not to distort. Talk
No.
about it in the way that it really is.
Right,
It could
exactly.
be
I
distorted,
agree.
exactly.
I agree.
And that's what we try to do here, Michael and Paul. Isn't that what the essence
Yeah.
of the
Well,
show?
But, we were talking about, though, see, the effects of addiction is true. It affects all walks of life.
Yeah.
But let me just tell you something. Treatment is not equal for everyone.
That's true.
That's
Why isn't that the case?
what not
You
every-
made a powerful statement there.
Yes, that's the
that
resource.
is a very, very powerful resources. How about lack of communication, lack of knowledge, lack of, let's say, information? Not everyone gets all the equal information.
Well,
Why?
but
It took my
Why?
mom to get arrested in order for her to get the information about recovery.
Because? Why was she
it's
out of
just-
the loop?
It's just not, when you're living that lifestyle.
Well, I
You
understand
have
that, but they're
different-
not talking about that. They're talking about the treatment aspect of it.
Well, let's
People
talk-
within
let's-
certain communities
But
are getting
it-
different
it-
treatment.
talk about
it's very
mass
hard
inca-
to also get into some of those beds.
Let's talk about
addiction is large.
I work in
It's
treatment,
big.
Michael.
Yeah.
I work in treatment, and I seen some guys just come in and then, oof.
Right, it's a
I
very-
seen guys really try to come in and they're like, no.
Well, how about mass and CAS? I mean, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. Somebody mentioned it, right? So mass and CAS is kind of like, what was that, the district out in San Francisco?
Nowhere near.
Well, but
our
that's
version-
where they go.
Yeah, our
right?
version of that, yeah.
So it's not just like the methadone mile where they all can't congregate. There's a jail there. There's a hospital system there. There's rehab facilities. Everything is surrounding them. And there's a revolving door that goes on there. And I have firsthand knowledge of how all that stuff works. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The resources that they throw at it are
Now-
incredible. But let me just
Yeah.
point out, they spend the money incorrectly.
Now,
and
speaking
it's
of
not
that,
complete.
Now, speaking of that, let's use that as an
That's interesting.
example. I really want to thank the Mayor Wu, because what they did this time, they didn't just clean it up and push people away or just knock down tents and they'll come right back. They actually help house some of these people to get some treatment, to get somewhere to go where they're able to get some other resources, because that's how you're gonna that's how you help.
Right.
Help
That's
some
like
of
the
the
Haven Project.
You can't just
It's
knock
a-
down the tent and they'll come right back.
It's more than, it's 6 to 12 months at a minimum, though. So if you put somebody in just say a 30-day program, right? You get them clean for a while. Maybe you get them on methadone, or maybe you put them on Suboxone and all that kind of stuff. And then the 30 days is up, and they got to send them off because they got to.
Yeah.
Somebody coming in behind them, right? And where do they go there? Maybe they go to a 6-month program. Maybe.
There's holdings for the treatment. That's
Right.
what we
but,
need.
But
to
the problem
put our
is
resources.
the treatment, the whole gambit of resources that are available are come up short in the long-term recovery. And I'm not blaming them for it, but the system is broken. There needs to be, I mean, if you took all the money that they used to put towards this type of stuff and repositioned it, I bet you could.
And
you
that's
could have an
and that's what's
80%.
happening now. The conversation has been different about, because I'm currently going to school right now. So 20 years ago,
Coming and going to school for what?
Thank you.
licensed drug and alcohol counseling.
I mean, no, I wanted you to tell people that.
Yes. So the treatment now, it's looked differently, because there's now we understand medically that it's a treatable disease, and the old thinking, like where it was a moral failing, it's no longer, because
It hasn't been like that for many years.
Yeah, but-
It was not a moral issue when I got sober 30 years ago.
No, in the 12 steps, the fellowships, et cetera. Now, medically, and I'm talking about medically in the
And
treatment,
it's been like that for quite some time.
where they're looking at it now.
Wait a minute.
The treatment is starting to be different. Go ahead,
My
Blake.
boy wanted to say something important.
Go ahead.
Well, we was kind of got away from when you mentioned about it's not fair. And the reason why it's not fair is because we're dealing with race. And that makes people uncomfortable. So we don't talk about it. I'm gonna
drug
give you an
race
example.
specific? Okay, yeah, I
I'll
wanna
give you
hear
an
this,
example.
yeah.
I'm 58 years old, and
You don't look it.
Thank you. But when blacks were going to prison
Yeah,
for having a joint
yeah.
or stick of marijuana or some
Small-
crack
small
or this
bag
or
of crack,
that,
yeah.
getting all of that time, it's a known fact that these laws broke up black families. Period.
Yeah.
There's no disputing that. So what I'm saying is, as a result of that, now that we have young white boys and white girls that are doing the shake in the middle of the Mass Ave, it's a different story. You saw the politicians, you see the pharmaceutical companies, you see all these commercials. This isn't fair. This is treatable. We have to save our children. Now, me as a black man, I'm sitting back, look at this game here.
A little too late.
The thing is, I say what most people think.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that's a
going to
fact.
say it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make me, it does make me angry. I should be angry at the hypocrisy. So at the same time, I don't attack you because you don't look like me, because I know that it's bigger than that. Those whites are victims too. They're victims of something that they don't see.
Blake,
I'm
what-
looking at the bigger
Yeah,
picture.
well, here's the big picture,
Yeah.
and this it's dated, but in all of my years of being in the bar business, right, I saw very few black alcoholics. You did not see black people going to the bar and walking
You
out.
have to go to Shannon.
skunk-
My
skunk
granddaddy
everything.
was a bartender
Yeah,
at
go to
Shannon,
the
Shannon
Shannon.
Pub.
Did you?
You have to go to the right bar.
Well, I suspect that may be true. I wanted to point out that, you're talking about a reality that was a reality that people don't like to talk about, but it was a reality. Look, you're right about that, because I remember one night when I did not drink too often, but occasionally I did, and I didn't know what day of the week it was, and I ended up at a place, and when I walked in the door, I didn't look like anybody in that place, and I was in dire need of help, and some fellow that kind of looked like you, Blake, who knew me, said he's okay, and that saved my bacon.
So can I,
He's
can,
with
can I
me.
just, a couple things I'd like to say about that, about your comments, Blake, and that is, while I don't dispute anything that you said, one of the things that's important to understand is that most often, it has to hit home before people will
course.
get on
Yeah.
top of it, right? And, it's,
I agree.
it's like the guys that, like the politician in D.C. who gets carjacked, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
now he wants to stop the problem, when before he didn't even know it was a problem.
Yeah.
So stuff happens, and and when it hits home, it hits
Yeah.
home, and I think that's
And that's the key, because now everyone's, it's heading everywhere, especially in our city,
Yeah.
Things that didn't happen in their World War are happening nowadays,
Right.
and
But what he said about
Who's
his
he?
trip to the Bay Area with San Fran, and if you take Lynn and put a comparative, Lynn is an awfully good city compared to what you saw out there. Apparently, the situation out there is far.
I can tell you from my travels in different
Yeah.
cities, we have it good here in the Massachusetts.
Lynn is pretty good, huh?
Yeah, you were in last time you were on the show. You were talking about Philadelphia, right?
I was there twice.
and-
I was there in
and
September.
You
again.
had to step over people.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Those are big places. They're much bigger than Boston. They don't have the resources. We have it here. When I think about it and I look and I say, wait a minute. The guy says, listen, it was 7 hotels. I drove, I took pictures, I looked at them. I went in 2, and it's like 1955. There's no bathrooms. The guy was saying there are no bathrooms. Well, how did they? And he said, come on. So I followed him. He pointed. I took a picture of it. I said, how many people in the time? 1. All of these people? Yeah. This isn't one street. This is street after street after street, and they're all hills. And you go, there's a lot of, it's nasty. There's dogs, there's
I
dog
guess.
mess everywhere. It's the people that have businesses, they have the hoses. They all have hoses.
Yeah.
I said, wow, they all, yeah, because it's spread
Until the
sidewalks.
Chinese came, and all things changed. Blake, I want people to understand that you're basically a photojournalist in a lot of ways. You video and you make documentaries about drug addiction and what some of the
Homelessness.
solution, homelessness and this nature. So I want people to understand that. That's why he's in Philadelphia and San Fran and other places, Michael, too. Where else? Do you know?
You travel, I'm assuming, in like metro areas. Or,
I've been a lot of places in New England.
Yeah.
Not for that, just to observe the surroundings and stuff like that. I have some other places that I plan on going to. But my goal in doing what I do is for others to see, hey, I was there. I want to get in that hole with you and show you how I got out of that hole, which is the ultimate thing to do.
That's the important thing.
And the thing, the
Yeah,
more
'cause
Blake
it's about
talks,
attraction, not promotion. Remember that.
yeah, the more Blake is chatting and talking about different areas and the resources they have. When I was in Dubai, I went to an area that had a lot of the U.S. restaurants there, like a Pizza Hut, McDonald's, whatnot. But in that area, a few blocks over, there's a huge like prostitution type thing, and it's illegal. So the government doesn't know about it, but everyone else does.
That's Casablanca.
And in addition to that, you see all the addicts strung out, but there's no drugs allowed in the country.
Yeah.
So, the whole mindset out of sight, out of mind is not a way to fix that problem. Obviously, in the UAE, only 3% of the people that live there are native to that country. 97% are people from outside.
This is a beautiful segue because we're going to show you a little something from Dubai, did you say? Pedro, would you throw up that little video we have about what's happening in Dubai and let these folks here help us out?
The U.S. has pledged $3 billion to the Green Climate Fund. It is the largest international fund to combat climate change in developing countries. Vice President Kamala Harris made the announcement during the COP28 summit in Dubai. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff to speak about the summit. Hey, good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Chanel. Now, the Green Climate Fund is the way that the UN, who runs this conference, pays for all the promises made during the Paris Agreement. That came out of COP21 in Paris, and they help all sorts of countries all around the world keep from going off a climate cliff, which is going beyond 1.5 degrees C since we started burning oil, gas, and coal back in the mid-1700s.
Okay, so I want to talk about some of the big moments during the conference. Vice President Kamala Harris also speaking about the importance of challenging climate change deniers. Let's take a listen.
Yeah.
Around the world, there are those who seek to slow or stop our progress. Leaders who deny climate science, delay climate action, and spread misinformation. Corporations that greenwash climate inaction and lobby for billions of dollars in fossil fuel subsidies. In the face of their resistance, and in the context of this moment, we must do more.
So, Dave, talk a bit to us about the motivation behind those comments and how convincing she was.
Well, this actually shows a bright line, Chanel, of where everybody's priorities are. The man who runs this conference is actually the CEO of an Abu Dhabi oil company. That's been very controversial, and the first time a CEO has ever run this particular conference in the UAE and all over the world at all the different COPs. Vice President Harris was saying that this is an emergency that we have taken far too long to address right now, and we have to go after these goals. That's what the president is saying. That's what the Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm has told me on several occasions. She actually calls OPEC a cartel. But the UN Secretary General, who runs this conference, he went out and went completely different than even the president of the United States and the president of this COP by saying that we have to stop burning fossil fuels right now. Not abate, not phase out, but actually stop it altogether. But the CEO may run this conference, Chanel, but the UN, it's their show.
His business.
So, a couple things. First of all, this emergency that she's talking about has been, it's been an emergency as long as I've been around, even before that. So back in 1970, they were talking about how if we didn't do it immediately in 10 years, it was going to be over. And they just keep pushing it out. Let me just say that first. And then secondly, I'd like to say, is that all that money that's getting put into this fund that goes to the WHO? I want to know how it's being spent. Screw this business of raising money and saying we're going to stop it.
Go on, Mike.
Tell me how you're going to spend it.
They just explained where the money was going to go.
No, they didn't say a
but
dime about it.
It was hard to get over the fact that the reporter looked like Jimmy Fallon. which was pretty funny. But as you can see, they had mentioned Abu Dhabi, which is the capital of UAE, which is a very, very wealthy part of the world. And the person that was hosting the event was from Abu Dhabi.
He also has a master's degree in chemical engineering. He has a PhD.
Is it from MIT? Is it from?
No.
Where is it from?
University of California.
Wow. Okay.
He also has a PhD in economics.
Okay.
He's not chopped liver.
No. That's awesome. And the picture with the Vice President Harris, you saw John Kerry, and I told you the story.
He is chopped liver.
I told
How many private jets had to go over there? 800
Okay,
of them.
let me fix this real quick. Okay, when I went to my best friend's wedding in Mexico, I told you the story where I got bumped up to first class. And I sat behind John Kerry,
You
who was
paid
going
for first class. Don't
no,
give me
no,
that.
who was going to meet the president of Mexico to talk about the climate issues. He's working. John Kerry is working in the position that he was appointed by the president to combat climate change around the world, and it's a tireless job. I've actually got to witness him in action when he went to Mexico, because he actually went to the same province that I was staying at for the wedding. But yeah, global warming is something that we need to utilize. $3 billion is not a lot of money when you look into the spectrum of things, how it's a worldwide.
And you thought Al Gore was crazy, see?
Yeah, he is. Well, the problem with the $3 billion, that's a lot of money. The problem is 90% of it's going to go to administration.
Now, wait a second. Let me context this. Because we have two illustrious guests, we cut back on some of the stats, some of the figures will be thrown up there. So I'm going off the top of my head.
Go ahead.
The $3 billion you talk about, actually, the Gore administration, you got me thinking about Al Gore. Actually, the
Gore administration.
Biden-Harris administration is talking about $1 trillion.
Well,
$1 trillion,
the thing
Michael.
said-
That's
it
not
said
chump
3
change.
billion. It
No,
said 3
that's $3 billion just for the Green Fund.
Yeah.
The Green Fund. Let me give
The
you put that in
Green
context.
Climate
Yeah.
Fund.
Well, let me put that in context. Estonia has pledged $1 million. Next, my parents' home country pledged $300 million. Okay. Portugal, $4 million. Switzerland, that has a lot of money, 125 million. We pledged $3 billion. You were talking about the disproportionate money being spent accordingly in drugs. It's the same situation.
Same.
Now, what they're trying to say, do you see the guy that had the Arafat garb on?
Yes.
You see that big tall guy who's a native? Well, he's the head of the COP, which stands for countries of whatever, Here's what he said, drove them all bananas. He said that there is no strong science behind this fossil fuels is causing all these problems.
Awesome.
And he furthermore said that if in fact we were to abandon fossil fuels, as the head of the United Nations, Guterres, is saying, we would be back in the caves in no time, humanity, right? Now, these are two major differences. You talk about using head versus emotion. Climate change is an emotional issue.
It is.
It is.
Can I just say, that let's just talk about a couple of things. So human beings, there's a bunch of things that we need to survive, right? But basic stuff is we need our blood circulating, and
Right.
we need oxygen, right? Those are the kinds of things that we need to have. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. So let's just take an economy, a world economy, and kind of say, what is the blood and the oxygen that makes up a world, right?
You're not going to have an economy if you don't have a planet.
You're not going to have an economy if you don't have a planet, but you're not going to have anybody to do any of the work if you don't have any way to make money. How are you going? So let me just
Money has not always been around.
Let me put it in perspective. The price of gas has gone up substantially since they stopped drilling for gas in this country, right?
It's at $2.90 some odd
The
cents.
price of electricity has gone up substantially. How about your electric bill? Is your electric bill gone up a lot?
I don't want to talk about.
Okay. So, but my point is, where the gas bills are going up, the electric bills are going up, all so that we can stop the coastal
we could go
countries from
green.
falling.
They want us to go green, right?
Yeah.
Lenny, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
What do most people die of? Heat or cold?
Cold.
It's the cap.
90% of
Is
the
this
people
half
who
full?
die.
Half full, half empty.
It's almost empty.
No, 90% of the people who die from freezing to death. Fossil fuels prevented that. Without fossil fuels, they couldn't keep warm. Blake, this is what
There was a
bothers me.
time and a place that
Depends
it was.
where they're at.
Really?
Yeah.
Michael,
Maybe
We have
we all
better
move-
technology that we don't need to
you know
rely
the
on.
thing, you know the thing called the sun that's spinning around up
Yeah.
there?
El Sol.
Well, it regenerates itself through a thing called fusion
We talk about this every
all of the
couple
time.
months.
And yet we don't have John Kerry or any of these folks that have supposedly brain power, which I doubt. Never talking about fusion, which is the next step.
Explain
We
that,
used to
explain
burn forests. And after that, we said, that's not a good idea. So we came up with technologies. Now, that's fine. They have ways of mitigating the negative effect. You know what the CO2 percentage of our atmosphere is, Michael? Do you have any idea?
You told me this already.
Yeah, it's
0.0.
0.04%. Insignificant. Hasn't changed in centuries. So these people are talking ragtime. They don't know science. You think that John Kerry knows anything about science or Al Gore? You honestly think that they know anything about
They
it?
rely heavily on
On who?
scientists.
Who are they relying on? Gutierrez?
Scientists.
No, they're not.
And every
the
one of them-
scientists you call scientists aren't scientists. The guy with
Because
the,
you
the
disagree
guy
with
the-
someone doesn't mean that they're not who they are.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you this. What about the folks that are the scientists that are being shut down?
You can't disagree with them.
It's a hypothesis.
Oh, you're a denier. You're a denier. Oh my God, you're a denier.
A hypothesis is just a theory.
Everything in
knows
life is a
ketchup.
theory.
Exactly. Exactly. Ptolemy said that the center of the universe was the earth. Everything revolved around the earth. And everybody said, okay. They agreed to it. Guess what? He was wrong. Okay? And on it goes. Copernicus came along and improved it. He said, well, you have epicycles. And then thereafter, you have this one and that one. and
Earth
rest
was
of-
flat.
It's called
We can
progress,
go.
Mike.
Progress.
It's called
Very
progress.
simple.
Isn't that what you're trying to do with this drug problem?
Absolutely.
Is
Progress.
move forward.
So can I make an equation between, so let's talk about the opioid epidemic, right?
Yeah.
The poppy seed, the poppy plant in Afghanistan is like the root of
Yeah, it is.
heroin, right? It's a naturally occurring thing on this planet. It has a purpose, right? It can be abused, and it does, and we have and all the chemicals that have been created to substitute for it and all that kind of stuff. Oil is a naturally occurring thing under the ground. So is the gas in pockets of the
Fossil
use for
fuel.
Yeah.
Right. It's all naturally occurring. It occurred over many thousands of years, right?
Could be used for good or abuse, like you said.
Right. So I don't think there's any reason why using it judiciously and without.
That's it. Again, it shouldn't be abused. You can.
But you're saying that
you
she
can
said there has
drown
to be
from drinking
stopped.
too much water.
We have to stop now. Is
There's-
what she said.
Because we're
Now.
abusing it.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. As a matter of fact, the air is cleaner now than it was when I was your age.
It is.
Really?
A long time
Yeah, it is,
ago.
yeah. And let me say this to you, Michael.
Do you
This is
not
what
see more
bothers me.
people have asthma than ever before? Do you
My
see
daughter
that?
has asthma. Don't talk to me about asthma. I'm
My
well
son
aware of
has
asthma.
asthma.
Here is the point.
The air is not clean
It's much cleaner.
If you look,
Not
have
even
you ever
problems with
seen?
control
And I'm going to say this
because
to
of
you.
technology. Yes.
Hey, what about
Yes.
controlled climate?
You're not just burning
Do
stuff.
you believe in that?
What?
Controlled climates?
What I believe in is this: everything changes. So if someone says, "Do you believe in climate change?" Of course, because everything changes. Doesn't mean I believe in what you could define as climate change. Let's define it. There's a guy that says, "Let's define stuff. Forget about the emotions." That's what I'm talking about. Look. If I wanted to be scientific, Michael, I could tell you that when my daddy came to this country, I've said this many times, there's 1 billion human beings. 1 billion. As you and I are speaking now, there's 8.5 billion. That's an increase of 7.5 billion people. We exhale carbon dioxide. We're the biggest polluters of anybody. So you suggesting we get rid of about 7, 8 billion people? Is that what you're suggesting?
And by the way, that carbon dioxide is what trees eat. Right?
It didn't go up an ounce with an increase of 7.5 million. Because you know what? This is what folks better understand.
The increase in
Every time
population
we plant a tree.
Has caused pollution in our country.
What?
Well, I'll
the
share
increased
some
population.
What are you talking about?
It has.
What? Overpopulation?
Yeah.
Okay. What about all the trees that suck up
Who's
the carbon
going first?
dioxide? I mean, they suck up.
I'm not saying to
Joe,
get rid of people.
I'm going to share some
that's what they
emotional
are.
stuff with you with climate change. I bought a snowblower last year and I didn't get to use it.
Why is
Brand
that?
new.
Why?
No snow. have enough
So
snow.
that's how you do it.
Lenny,
If you don't want snow, buy a
days a
snowball.
year? How many days a year does it snow in Massachusetts and Lynn?
I don't know.
5 or 10?
11.
That's the average.
On average,
It snowed
11
once
days
already,
of
so we
actual
only have
snow.
10 left. Okay, good.
So no, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't snow that much. You know, this is why we exaggerate it. This is what he was talking about. The essence of this show is
With
to
your-
be intellectual,
with
not
your
to be
scarf,
emotional.
It looks like it's going to snow today.
What?
The scarf.
So I want to know why all the elites that live on the coastlines haven't moved inland if it's so bad.
Oh, please.
That's a good point.
Let me ask
Erosion, beach erosion.
Blake,
Yes.
you've traveled the world. I'm going to ask a simple trick question. You don't have to answer it. I'm not trying to trick you up. Can anybody out there explain to me why there's so much petroleum up in Nome, Alaska? Because if you use your brain, you would say, that's not possible. It's impossible for there to be petroleum in Nome, Alaska. It's much too cold, right? So there's no vegetation there. How did this happen? Bingo, bango, bingo. Oh, that means Alaska had to be someplace else because it's never been warm up in Nome, Alaska area, right? That means that the continents are drifting. They're moving.
They're shifting.
You agree? That's
tectonics.
thinking. That's what he's talking about. That's why the science that you're talking about are not science, they're wizards.
Why can't it be that the planet shifted in the rotation? Why does it have to be
Because
that
it's always been a...
But no, you're giving theories, and I'm just throwing
It's not a theory. The Arctic Circle to the North Pole...
I know what Pangea is. I know what the
yeah,
theories
but
are. And all that
are you
stuff.
trying to tell me it's ever been warm up at the North or the South Pole?
I don't know. I wasn't around a million years ago.
Never
It's
know. Maybe a
impossible.
million years ago.
It's
But you know what I want to talk
impossible.
about, Joe? I want you to mention fusion. You would just mention
Fusion technology, yeah.
Come on, elaborate on that.
Fusion is neither radioactive, it doesn't cause any environmental negatives.
Exactly, that's
the
my
key
point.
to fusion is, and they haven't got to it yet, just like the computer with General Electric were the first ones to have a computer, which is now owned by the Chinese. General Electric people
Please,
don't know
no,
that.
stop it.
Yeah, no, it's true. So now what happens is they had to figure out how do you take these big vacuum tubes and miniaturize them in order to be able to build computers and then microchips. So they had to miniaturize it all, and therefore we now have iPhones, right, and computers. This computer, if they had this computer 50 years ago,
It would be the size of this room.
oh,
yeah.
please. So fusion, the trick now is to contain it. How do you contain it? And they're using electromagnetic fields. Right now, they got these big things spinning like crazy. They'll figure it out because I have faith in science. Real scientists, not these baloney guys at Oxford University.
All I'm going to
You know?
do is cut out the rest of the things you just said and just say I have faith in science. And
I have
that's
faith
all-
in science.
That's all I need. Thank you.
All right. But the science that I'm talking about, well, wait a minute, Michael. In 1818, which I've mentioned before, get this, folks, 1818, that was a little while ago, there was a woman, contrary to popular belief, that wrote a magnificent book called Frankenstein.
Mary Shelley.
Okay? Yeah, Mary Shelley. And this woman understood what he's talking about. This poor creature that didn't ask to be created was so hideous, and all they wanted to do was be patted on the head and touched and loved. And because he was so hideous, that didn't happen. And so he figured out that this guy was blind. And he waited for the children to take a hike from the house so he could go engage a blind man. And the blind man couldn't see him. And they got along fine, and things were going wonderful. Then you know what happened? The kids came back. They could see. They beat the living crap out of the poor creature and made him run back with a broken heart to his loneliness. Now, he could have taken these kids and snapped them in half, and he didn't, which shows me his character. That was written in 1818. She was a science fiction writer of the first order. So we're always moving forward. He talked about it. The prejudice that you talked about absolutely existed in this country against white, black, whatever you want to call it,
Still does.
right? Yeah, it does, but it's abated significantly, right? I don't see too many of my guys going to Cannes like they used to, you know, my Sicilians, okay? It's changed. I got a great grandkids. I have no idea what they are. They don't look like me. They have crazy names like Roland, you know, and like, who knows? Harvey. And I'm saying, what's this here? What happened to Salvatore Mario and Pasquale? Are those names not good anymore?
God,
So we're moving forward, aren't we, Lenny?
Yes,
Is
we
this
are.
what it's all? Michael, you have a perfect example of the evolution of betterment. You came from a difficult background. Your wife is a PA. That's a big deal. And your
And
kids got life by the short hairs because of you and your wife.
No, again, I'm very blessed to have the life
certainly
that I
are.
have. And I had to go through the struggles that I went through to get here.
Yeah. And so did he, and
Yeah.
so did he.
We all have a story at this table, and that's why people can watch us and relate, and that's
Right.
the biggest thing. And that's why we come back every week.
Right. But, Michael, we can't give credit. People call themselves experts, and Paulie, I can't stand that word
Neither
expert.
can I.
See, you're the narrative of your story. And that's what we want to tell people.
So-
you don't have to sit and go with the wind. You don't have to go with the tide. You can
Amsterdam
go. You
is
can go
next.
against the grain.
Yeah. Not to go against the grain for the sake of going against the grain.
No,
It's just that why not take a peek through a different prism
Yeah.
why not?
and see what you might discover?
That's why I love traveling, just like Blake, is because we're able to go into a different world and
Yeah.
experience it. And that helps us grow, and it becomes a part of us. Like, I can talk to my kids. Like, my son's named after my best friend in Marcus in
Germany. Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal to be able to tell him that story, for him to interact and to know someone so far away.
But you don't think it's a big deal to talk about John Kerry flying on a jet and talking about
He's
global
not. He
warming?
wasn't on a jet. He was on a plane with me.
Yes. And what do you think that plane was doing? It
was
wasn't
flying.
burning electricity or fusion, I'll tell you that right now.
And he is not a scientist.
He's a very smart guy.
He's a
You
fraud.
think he's smart?
Fraud of the
I
highest
don't.
order.
I do.
John Kerry, you are a fraud of the highest order.
And that, as far as
Heinz ketchup is-
traveling goes, either Spain or Amsterdam.
Teresa Heinz.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one that I'm gonna go to next because I want to see how they deal with the drug. Here we throw money at everything,
Yeah.
which is blowing up in our faces, and so I want to see how they deal with it.
Go to Amsterdam, my friend.
Hearing about it is one thing, but seeing it is another.
Yeah. But go to Amsterdam,
Amsterdam.
because they legalize it there.
Really?
And you can see it. I mean, hard drugs they legalize there.
Right.
Plus, it's it's the densest country in the world.
I heard that it was dense. Yeah.
So you're going to get a real good picture of how do you go to a place that's overcrowded and clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
Amsterdam.
Kind of like
huh?
Heinz ketchup. John Kerry knows a little about that.
Yeah.
He probably knows more about that than he does about climate.
Stop it.
Hey,
Ketchup is an art, and my son loves ketchup. I probably spend more money on ketchup than most people. I do want
Do
to.
you call it a vegetable?
Wait a minute. It isn't, though.
tomato,
What?
tomato.
Hold on.
It's a fruit.
What I wanted to talk about real briefly is
Yeah.
Lenny and myself, and my wife, and my kids are in a production this weekend at Calvary Christian Church at 47
I
Grove.
forgot about that.
It's
Oh, yeah.
called The Gospel of Scrooge,
yes, yes.
and we have a show on Friday at 7, 2 on Saturday.
and
What are
one
the
on
times?
Sunday.
That's well
2
promoted.
o'clock
But,
and 7 o'clock.
Lenny,
Yes, sir.
I like Calvin Coolidge better than you. Calvin, get up there. He's one of my favorite guys. Get that quote.
Where's
Paulie,
Calvin?
Paulie, give me that quote.
Nothing in this
Oh.
world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent.
Pretty good, huh? Michael?
99% of failures come from people who make excuses.
Judge your wash.
George Washington.
Go ahead,
That's a good
Lenny.
one.
What's the next one? Here we go. Patience and perseverance have a magical effect before which difficulties disappear and obstacles vanish.
You like that
John
one, huh?
Quincy
Yeah?
Adams. Yeah.
Go ahead, Blake.
4, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nothing.
that's
Teddy
so true.
Roosevelt.
Wow.
Too many people, that's what they'll do. They can't make up their mind, so they just do nothing.
The finest steel has to go through the hottest fire. Richard M. Nixon. Paulie?
What counts is not necessarily the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog.
You like that, Lenny? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Michael.
Especially with Heinz ketchup. I
A
like
man is not finished when he is defeated. He is finished when he quits. Richard M. Nixon.
I wonder if he said that
So many
when he
Nixon
resigned.
comments.
Yeah, it's Nixon, you hear that?
Here we go. A brave man is a man who dares to look the devil in the face and tell him he is a devil. Is that Muhammad Ali?
Yeah,
John
that's
Kerry, you are a
James
devil.
Galvin.
Blake?
9, if you take no risk, you will suffer no defeats. But if you take no risks, you win no victories. Another one by Nixon.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well,
Another
why is
one.
this?
Someone likes Nixon.
Now, that isn't why. It was just they took them down the list here. Honesty is the first chapter of the Book of Wisdom. I like that.
I love that.
I like that.
I like
Thomas Jefferson. Come on, Polly.
Any man worth his salt will stick up for what he believes right, but it takes a slightly better man to acknowledge instantly and without reservation that he is in error.
Wow.
The truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable.
Miserable.
James A. Garfield.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
it.
so true.
It is true.
The truth is hard to swallow.
Yeah. Two more.
Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power.
Yeah. You like that one, Lenny?
I like that one.
Blake?
Abraham Lincoln.
14, every expert was once a beginner. Rutherford B. Hayes.
Yeah, I like that.
Why'd you pick that one if you don't like experts?
Because that's exactly right.
Jehovah's Witness.
Was he a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah,
I didn't know
Jehovah's
that.
Witness.
And lastly, don't expect to build up the weak by pulling down the strong. Calvin Coolidge.
Right.
I talk about that. Yeah.
That's a very good one, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we got a few minutes left. So give us an update, Lenny, as to what you and your dear friend Blake are doing. And are you still protecting my little friend over here, Michael?
Just one quick thing. We're coming up with the holiday season. We just had Thanksgiving. This is a very, very hard time for people in general.
Yes.
Especially with people that have lost relatives and whatnot. But is this also a hard time for those that are struggling with addiction?
That's a great point.
Holidays can be, yeah.
Holidays are hard, you know. Go ahead, Blake.
I don't necessarily pick one over the other. You know, I mean, it has its place, but that seems to be the effect that it has because it's the holidays and its symbolism, and we get carried by our emotion in this symbolism.
Sometimes people, when they're like in early stages of recovery, and they finally get back to their families, and they go to family for Thanksgiving, and everybody has a big meal, and then the booze opens up.
You get that drunk uncle say, "You can do it. Come on."
Yeah, right. Come on. Yeah, and I think that's a big problem.
But it is
potentially.
The research does show that more people die during
Well,
the holiday
suicide
season.
increases, all these things. And I just want our viewers to know, like, if you're struggling with addiction, we brought up some different places that you can go to. One on Exchange Street, which is the Recovery
There's a
Exchange.
whole list of places.
You have, Anthony Gutierrez with, he's out there on the streets trying to, make it better with regards to violence and whatnot, but they also have ways to help connect you. The Len Community Connection Coalition can connect you to different organizations within the city as well. Get the help you need.
You got Leonard's Against Drug Abuse, too.
Yes,
You
you
can
can.
contact me or Blake.
Yes.
Call somebody who you know is clean and sober, because they can help.
Yeah.
Even just
Good
having
advice.
somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
We're
Just
in it
having
together.
someone
We're
talk-
all. If anything that you could have learned during this episode, during this show, is that we're really all in this together. We understand that. I don't think there's a disagreement at this table that we're all in this
other than
together.
John
I think
Kerry.
we've come to that point in the conversation where we understand that there is a problem. We can no longer, we can't avoid or ignore the big pink elephant that's walking around downtown.
You know what I like
everywhere.
the best, Lenny?
Yes.
I didn't even have the tendency to scream about the fact that we have an open border and the fentanyl's coming across. Till next week.